Hey YouTube, Joe Boy here. So today I have an awesome theory post for y'all that I think is going to convince a lot of you what exactly happened to Jinbe. So as a little recap in the story of One Piece, about a little over 10 chapters ago, Jinbe met with Big Mom in order to leave her crew. And while Big Mom seemed on the surface okay with it, since she perceived Jinbe as taking something from her, i.e. his support and his manpower, then she wanted something in return from Jinbe. And so Big Mom brought out a roulette with a bunch of different options on it. And so we know that Jinbe is going to lose something. And I think I know exactly what Jinbe lost. And our most major clue to understanding this comes a few chapters after we see Jinbe and Big Mom and the roulette. In chapter 834, the residents of Totlin received a mail, and inside this mail it talked about how Jinbe had tried to leave Big Mom's crew. However, it states that he got cold feet after he was asked to make the payment in order to leave her crew. And so then all of the residents on Totlin are bashing Jinbe. He's no longer Jinbe the warlord, he's Jinbe the scrub. Brook and Pedro read this as well, and Brook talks about it, and Brook acknowledges that this is not the Jinbe that they knew, and that perhaps he had given up on the idea of joining their crew, which as of just before Jinbe met with Big Mom, he talked to his subordinates in which he illustrated that he believed Luffy was going to be the one to be the Pirate King. He wanted to do what he wanted to do, and that was to support them on their journey. So this completely contradicts the idea that he would give up. So it's pretty clear that we're missing something. I think the community in general agrees that Jinbe would not have gotten cold feet unless the price to pay was just way too steep for him. And again, a lot of people seem to agree that if this had to do with Jinbe's own life, or his arms or his legs, that this would not have been enough to deter him. It would be completely counter to the Jinbe that we know. So a lot of people are speculating that this other option that's on the roulette board, which seems to have a crown, in some way implies that somebody close to Jinbe would die. Whether that be the entire Fishman Island, the royalty of Fishman Island, maybe a member of his crew, something along those lines. As long as it was somebody other than Jinbe's life was at stake, then that might have forced Jinbe's hand and made him give up on his desire to join the Straw Hat crew. But I honestly don't believe this is the case. Well, I do think it's possible that if somebody else's life was at stake, Jinbe might have indeed gotten cold feet. I don't believe that was an option that was available on the roulette. So now, let's break down the roulette as I see it. And specifically at the end, let's talk about the crown symbol, which is the one that I think Jinbe actually got, and I think I know exactly what it means. So there are several very obvious options. The head symbol clearly implies Jinbe would die. Arms and legs means very simply that he will lose his arm or his legs. But I don't think any of these options are the options that Jinbe ended up getting. Mainly because I don't think Jinbe is going to die. He's going to join the Straw Hat crew at the end of this arc. As far as losing his arm or his leg, still possible, but I don't really see that happening at this point in time. Jinbe does not need to be nerfed in order to join the Straw Hat crew. This is not something that I believe. That the Straw Hats in general just need to get stronger all the way around. Jinbe is not too strong to join the Straw Hat crew at this point in the story. Now, there's some numbers as well, and while this is not necessarily true, I think that there's two real options for what these numbers could represent. Since the number that is smaller occupies less space on the board, and therefore would be harder to get, I assume that the smaller numbers would be advantageous for somebody to land on the roulette. Therefore, the bigger numbers would require more reward or more sacrifice from Jinbe. And so the two options that I have is, first of all, it's money. Now this could be like, so we have 10, 100, and 1,000. This could be 10 million, 100 million, and 1 billion berries. Or, just add a couple zeros in someplace else, something along those lines. It could be money. Big Mom is constantly searching for money. She spends a lot of money on superfluous things, on weddings and tea parties and research to make her family all giants, all this stuff that isn't really necessary, so she needs money. So it would make sense for this to be an option. The other option is lifespan. So we have 10 years, or since we so far have gotten a bunch of sacrifices in life noted for the amount of months, aside from Mr. Moscato, who took 40 years, it could also be months as well, months or years. So 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, which would seem kind of overkill, or 10 months, 100 months, or 1,000 months. And 1,000 months would actually add up to about 83 years, so that would kind of make more sense to me. But again, guys, I don't think that Jinbe got the option of the numbers either. I think the option that he got was the crown. So now let's look at the crown symbol. And I found something incredibly interesting. Let's look at this crown symbol and let's break down the features that are on it. First of all, you have the crown. And because of this, a lot of people have speculated that this has something to do with Fishman Island or royalty. But that might not be the case. Let's look at its face. First of all, notice that it has a round nose. This may or may not be important, but I find it incredibly interesting that Oda decided to draw the symbol with a round nose. And then let's look at the hair. The hair sticks off to the side on both sides of its head. Now, this is actually a common feature of a certain group of people, but I'll get to that in just a second. Just notice the hair. And then we have the laughing, smiling face. It's not really a smiling face, it's more of like a laughing face. You can see the mouth is clearly wide open. And then also, as a side note, it seems interesting that Oda decided to draw it on the black squares. So this face happened to be white because of that. So let's add up all these features to what I believe it represents. A round nose, similar to perhaps a clown nose. Hair off to the side, also a common feature in movies and or drawings for clowns. White skin, again, a clown feature. A laughing face, clowns. And then lastly, we have this crown, which a lot of people assumed was related to royalty. But you know what? It also looks very similar to the hats commonly worn by clowns. Now, before you turn away from this theory thinking this is ridiculous, why would there be a clown symbol on the roulette? I do think that there is an actual reason, right? So to me, it seems pretty clearly to be a clown. Let me know if you disagree or if you agree. Now, what does this mean? Well, I think it's interesting that in the next scene that we see with Jinbe, all of the residents learn that he got cold feet, and therefore were humiliating him because of what they perceived happened. Is it possible that Jinbe is now a joke? Did he perhaps lose his reputation? Now, this was a theory that came out on the date that chapter 834 was released. Some people had this idea. I actually heard of it and talked about it in my first reaction to the chapter. But this evidence that this symbol seems to me to clearly be a clown highly supports it. And so the other question that we need to ask ourselves here is that why would Big Mom care about Jinbe's reputation? Why would that matter to her? Why would she include that as an option on the roulette as a sacrifice someone would have to pay in order to leave her crew? And I think that there's evidence to substantiate Big Mom doing this, which is that Big Mom cares what people think about her. Big Mom seems to be a big believer in the idea of honor and pride, which is that one of the reasons why she wanted to take something from Jinbe in the first place is because Jinbe dishonored her by association by wanting to leave her crew in the first place. The idea of him doing that made Big Mom look bad. And so it would make sense for an option on the roulette be to make that person who wants to leave look bad in place of her, to substantiate him ending up leaving her crew. And so this sequence of events would perfectly explain why all the residents of Totland received mail suggesting that Jinbe got cold feet when it's pretty clear that he shouldn't have based on his character. It was simply the price he had to pay in order to leave Big Mom's crew. And honestly guys, this really adds up with my in general idea that Big Mom will not be the enemy of this arc, and that at some point in the future she may become an ally, which is that she isn't actually holding Jinbe back from the Straw Hats right now. Jinbe actually has officially left her crew, but before he can, his reputation must first be tarnished, because that is the option on the roulette that he received. And if you couple this with Big Mom's explicit response to Jinbe wanting to talk with her with, "Do you plan on leaving my crew?" this highly suggests that Big Mom already had an idea that Jinbe may want to leave. Like for instance, if you go up to your girlfriend or boyfriend and you ask them, hey, I have something to talk about, your first response shouldn't be, "Are you going to break up with me?" unless you already have an idea that something like that is possible. So in the case of Big Mom responding to Jinbe with, "Do you plan on leaving my crew?" suggests that she already knew that it was possible. She also knows Straw Hat Luffy is on the island. The other fishermen talk directly about how Jinbe can't stop talking about Straw Hat Luffy. Big Mom has eyes and ears everywhere, so I think it's highly possible that Big Mom already suspects that Jinbe might wanted to leave her crew in order to join Straw Hat Luffy. And so with this being said, if she's allowing Jinbe to straight up leave her crew, then that suggests that she knows who he's going to join, which is the person on her island, Straw Hat Luffy, which means that, all things considered, she might have a option, or she might see the possibility of Jinbe and Straw Hat Luffy leaving her island alive together. And so what this would imply is that Big Mom is not as evil as many people believe her to be, and that she's not looking to kill Jinbe or Straw Hat Luffy, but rather get in their way and prevent them from obtaining what they want, as I've said on many different theory posts, as some sort of test of character. We can even look at Big Mom testing Jinbe as well, which is that there's this roulette, and basically the idea behind this is, how badly do you want it? If you really want to leave my crew, what are you willing to sacrifice? Jinbe was willing to sacrifice anything, even his own life. And so he gets the roulette, and there's a possibility that he will die, but I don't believe that he got that option. But still, Big Mom now knows just how badly Jinbe wanted it. So just another test, guys. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the theory and the evidence, whether you agree or you disagree, and why. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section. I'd appreciate it if you liked the video. Subscribe if you haven't. And as always, dudes, have a wonderful day.